very urgent. Your soulmate is crying with happiness right now. Because you finally did this. My beloved child, stop for just one quiet moment. There is a reason your heart brought you here today, and what you are about to hear may explain a feeling you have not been able to put into words. Somewhere beyond everything you can currently see, a powerful shift has already begun. It did not start today. It started the moment you made one decision that seemed small to you but changed the direction of countless unseen possibilities. You thought you were simply choosing peace. You believed you were only moving forward because there was no other option. Yet that single step echoed far beyond your own life. And now, someone connected to your future can no longer hide what they feel. Your soulmate is crying. Not because of pain, not because of regret, but because they have finally sensed the version of you they had been waiting for all along. Stay with this story a little longer, because every next moment uncovers another piece of a puzzle that has been quietly assembling for much longer than you realize. For so long, invisible patterns kept repeating around you. Every disappointment seemed to whisper that nothing was changing. Every delay looked like another closed door. But what if those delays were never meant to stop you? What if they were slowing everything down until your heart became strong enough to recognize what truly belonged to you? Think carefully. Recently, you responded differently to something that once would have completely shaken you. Maybe you stayed calm instead of chasing. Maybe you chose your own growth instead of seeking approval. Maybe you released an old memory that had quietly controlled your emotions for years. It felt ordinary. Almost forgettable. Yet from another point of view, it looked extraordinary. That was the exact moment your energy began speaking a different language. The universe has a fascinating way of revealing change, not with loud announcements, but through silent transformations that only become obvious later. Your soulmate felt that transformation before they could even explain it. They could not understand why your presence suddenly became impossible to ignore. They simply knew something had changed. And it filled their heart with overwhelming emotion. Imagine this for a second. Somewhere, your soulmate paused during an ordinary day. Nothing dramatic happened around them. No giant sign appeared. No impossible miracle interrupted their routine. Yet inside, something unexpected unfolded. A feeling arrived without warning. They smiled. Then their eyes became emotional. They remembered someone they could not stop thinking about, even if they tried. They felt hope replacing confusion. They felt certainty replacing fear. And in that quiet moment, joyful tears appeared, not because they knew every answer, but because for the first time, they sensed that the distance between both of you was no longer growing. It was shrinking. Slowly. Naturally. Beautifully. What if this invisible moment is the beginning of a completely different chapter than the one you expected? Hold that question in your heart, because the answer is closer than you think. Life often hides its greatest turning points inside ordinary days. That is why so many people miss them. They expect fireworks while destiny prefers whispers. They wait for certainty while transformation arrives through subtle signs. You, however, are standing in a unique moment where your choices have begun creating echoes you cannot yet measure. Every time you refused to become bitter, every time you chose hope over fear, every time you believed your future deserved another chance, you unknowingly built a bridge between two hearts moving toward the same destination. Bridges are never completed in one day. They are built piece by piece. And now, another piece has quietly fallen into place. Your soulmate may not know your full story. They may not know your daily struggles. Yet somehow they are beginning to feel the result of everything you have overcome. That realization is powerful enough to move someone to tears, not tears of sadness, but tears born from relief, gratitude, and the overwhelming sense that something beautiful is finally becoming possible. Before this chapter ends, listen carefully to one final thought. Sometimes the greatest proof that your life is changing is not found in what you can already see. It is hidden inside the invisible movement happening before visible results appear. The next conversation. The next unexpected encounter. The next message. The next coincidence that feels too perfect to ignore. They may all be connected to the decision you already made without realizing its importance. So don't rush ahead just yet. The story has only opened its first door, and what waits beyond it will reveal why your soulmate's joyful tears are only the beginning of something far greater than either of you expected. Stay close, because the next chapter changes everything in a way you will never see coming. A quiet truth is about to surface, and this is where the story begins to reveal why those tears of happiness became impossible to hold back. If you have stayed with this moment until now, you are already seeing pieces that most people overlook. But the next piece changes the picture completely. Your soulmate is not celebrating because everything is already perfect. They are overwhelmed because they can finally feel that the future is moving instead of standing still. That feeling cannot be explained with ordinary words. It arrives like the sunrise, slowly at first, then all at once. Somewhere deep inside them, something that had remained uncertain for so long has started becoming clear. They may not know every detail. They may not even understand why your presence keeps returning to their thoughts. Yet their heart keeps repeating the same quiet message: something has changed, and this time it feels real. Stay a little longer, because what happens next explains why this invisible connection has become stronger than ever before. There is something remarkable about genuine transformation. It never asks for attention. It simply becomes impossible to ignore. While you were focused on improving your own path, healing your own thoughts, and choosing peace one decision at a time, your soulmate was unknowingly responding to that same invisible rhythm. They began noticing little moments that made no logical sense. A familiar feeling while walking through an ordinary place. A sudden smile without understanding why. A dream that felt more vivid than usual. A strange sense of calm replacing questions that once refused to disappear. None of these moments seemed important on their own. But together, they formed a message too powerful to dismiss. Their heart realized that the version of you they had hoped for was no longer just a possibility, it was becoming reality. That realization brought tears they never expected. Not because they were weak, but because hope has a way of touching places that words never can. Now imagine standing at the edge of a new beginning without realizing it. That is exactly where both of you are. The fascinating part is that destiny rarely announces itself with loud celebrations. Instead, it creates quiet confirmations that arrive one after another until everything suddenly makes sense. Every challenge you thought was slowing you down was actually preparing both journeys to meet at the right moment. Every unanswered question became another piece of wisdom. Every delay became another layer of patience. Looking back, one day you may discover that nothing was truly working against you. Everything was gently arranging itself in ways too detailed to recognize while you were living through them. And somewhere, your soulmate is beginning to understand that same truth. Their joyful tears are not only about meeting you someday. They are about realizing that life never stopped guiding both of you, even during seasons when nothing appeared to be happening. Here is another thought worth holding close. Sometimes the strongest connection between two people grows long before they ever recognize its full meaning. It grows through unseen lessons, quiet victories, and invisible courage. Every time you chose kindness instead of frustration, confidence instead of doubt, or hope instead of giving up, you strengthened something far beyond your own understanding. Those choices became signals carried into a future neither of you could fully see. And now those signals are finally being received. Your soulmate feels them like distant music becoming clearer with every passing day. That is why their heart feels lighter. That is why happiness has replaced uncertainty. They are beginning to trust that the story they almost stopped believing in is quietly becoming possible again. Before we continue into the next chapter, let me leave you with this gentle reminder. If this message has spoken to something inside you, let your thoughts become part of this journey. Share below the one word that describes the future you are choosing, and if this story has encouraged your heart, staying connected with this community means you will never miss the next piece when it arrives. Because what comes next is not about coincidence, it is about the moment when hidden signs begin turning into unmistakable answers. And believe me, the next chapter reveals the one discovery that neither you nor your soulmate expected to happen so soon. Something extraordinary is quietly unfolding right now, but this chapter is different. Up until now, you have heard about invisible feelings and silent changes. What comes next is where those hidden emotions begin finding direction. Imagine watching a river from above. At first, every stream looks separate. Every turn appears random. Yet from a greater view, every drop has always been flowing toward the same destination. That is what is happening with your story. Your soulmate is no longer wondering whether something has shifted, they are beginning to recognize why it shifted. The joyful tears you heard about earlier were only the first response. Now comes the deeper realization. They are starting to understand that the happiest moments often arrive after people stop forcing life and start trusting its natural rhythm. Wait until the final moment of this chapter, because one small realization changes everything you thought you understood. There is a beautiful difference between waiting and preparing. Many people confuse the two. Waiting feels heavy because it focuses on what has not happened yet. Preparing feels powerful because it transforms who you become while the future is still approaching. Without even noticing, you moved from waiting into preparing. Every lesson you accepted, every disappointment you refused to let define you. Every quiet victory that nobody applauded became another step toward the person you were always capable of becoming. That inner transformation did something remarkable. It created space for something healthier, calmer, and more meaningful to enter your life. Your soulmate is beginning to sense that space. They may not know every reason behind this feeling, but their heart recognizes peace where confusion once existed. That is why happiness reached them so unexpectedly. It was never about a single event. It was about finally believing that the future no longer feels uncertain. Now picture this scene. Your soulmate pauses in the middle of an ordinary evening. The world around them continues as usual, yet for a brief moment everything feels strangely meaningful. They notice a familiar melody. A simple conversation reminds them of someone they have never truly forgotten. A passing thought suddenly becomes impossible to ignore. Instead of questioning it, they smile. Not because every answer has arrived, but because they finally stop resisting what their heart has been quietly telling them for so long. Sometimes the greatest breakthrough is not discovering something new, it is accepting something that has been true all along. And in that quiet acceptance, another tear of happiness appears. Not from uncertainty. Not from fear. But from relief. Relief that the connection they once doubted now feels more alive than ever before. Here is something most people never realize. The future often begins changing long before visible events catch up. Every meaningful chapter starts inside unseen decisions before it appears in everyday life. That is why patience is never wasted. Every peaceful choice you made became another signal reaching farther than you could imagine. Every hopeful thought became another light guiding both paths forward. Even moments that looked like setbacks quietly redirected you toward something better suited for the life you are creating. Nothing meaningful has been lost. It has been preparing. Piece by piece. Day by day. Until this exact moment, when your soulmate finally feels that the distance between hope and reality is becoming smaller than ever before. And before this chapter comes to a close, remember one important thought. The happiest stories are rarely built through perfect timing. They are built through steady growth, quiet faith in tomorrow, and the courage to keep moving even when the destination cannot yet be seen. That is exactly why this journey is becoming so powerful. The next chapter will reveal the unexpected sign that brings both paths closer than either of you imagined, and when that moment arrives, the joyful tears of today will become the unforgettable smile of tomorrow. Hold on. Because this is the chapter where quiet feelings begin turning into unmistakable signs. Until now, everything has happened beneath the surface, like stars hidden behind daylight. But every hidden light eventually finds its moment to shine. Your soulmate is no longer simply feeling hopeful, they are beginning to notice small moments that seem too meaningful to ignore. A familiar thought arrives at the perfect time. An unexpected conversation points them toward a brighter future. A simple coincidence carries a feeling that stays with them long after the moment has passed. None of these events seem extraordinary to anyone else. Yet to them, they feel like gentle confirmations that life is slowly opening a door neither of you could have forced. Before you move ahead, stay for this final stretch, because the most important realization is still waiting. There comes a point in every meaningful journey when the heart stops asking, "Will this ever happen?" and quietly begins asking, "How should I prepare for what is coming?" That change is more powerful than most people realize. It replaces fear with calm expectation. It replaces doubt with quiet confidence. Your soulmate has entered that season without fully realizing it. They are no longer focused on what was lost or what could have been. Their attention has shifted toward what can still be created. That is why those tears of happiness carried so much meaning. They were not celebrating a memory. They were welcoming a future that suddenly feels possible again. Every challenge that once seemed like an obstacle now looks like preparation for something stronger, wiser, and more genuine than either of you imagined. Think about how remarkable life can be. Sometimes one decision made in silence creates waves that reach another heart without either person noticing. The kindness you showed when nobody was watching. The patience you practiced when giving up felt easier. The confidence you slowly rebuilt after difficult moments. Those choices became part of your story, and stories have a way of reaching the people who are meant to understand them. Your soulmate is beginning to recognize those invisible chapters, not because someone explained them, but because they can feel the difference. They sense a version of you that radiates peace instead of uncertainty, purpose instead of hesitation, hope instead of fear. And that realization fills them with gratitude for a future that finally feels within reach. As this chapter comes to its close, remember something that deserves to stay with you long after this video ends. The most beautiful connections are never built through perfect circumstances. They grow through patience, quiet courage, and the willingness to become the best version of yourself even before anyone else notices. That is exactly what has been happening here. The story is no longer about waiting for change, it is about recognizing that change has already begun. The next chapter belongs to the moments that neither of you can predict, yet both of you are quietly moving toward. And if this journey has brought even a little hope into your heart, let this community know by sharing your thoughts in the comments. If these stories continue to inspire you, staying subscribed means you will be here when the next chapter unfolds. Because what comes next is not simply another coincidence, it is the beginning of a future that has been patiently finding its way to you all along. Before you leave this journey behind, there is one final layer that has not yet been revealed. Every chapter until now has been leading to this quiet conclusion. Not a dramatic ending. Not a sudden twist. But something even more meaningful, a realization that changes how you look at every step that came before it. Imagine standing at the top of a mountain after a long climb. While you were walking, every turn seemed confusing. Every uphill path felt endless. Yet when you reach the summit, every difficult step suddenly makes perfect sense. That is exactly where your story has arrived. Your soulmate's tears of happiness were never caused by a single moment. They were the result of every invisible step that brought both of you closer to becoming the people you were always meant to be. The greatest transformations rarely happen in front of an audience. They happen in ordinary mornings, quiet evenings, and silent decisions that nobody else notices. While the world continued moving as usual, you were becoming stronger. You learned to protect your peace instead of chasing constant approval. You began trusting your own journey instead of comparing it with someone else's. Those changes seemed personal, almost invisible. But invisible does not mean unimportant. Every quiet victory became another signal reaching farther than you could imagine. And somewhere, your soulmate felt that signal. They could not explain why hope suddenly replaced uncertainty. They simply knew that something beautiful was moving closer, one unseen step at a time. Now imagine the day when your paths finally cross in the way they are meant to. It may not arrive with loud music or perfect timing. It may begin with an ordinary conversation, an unexpected opportunity, or a simple moment that feels strangely familiar. Looking back, you will realize that the connection did not begin on that day. It began long before, through every lesson, every challenge, and every choice that shaped who you became. Your soulmate's joyful tears were never about the destination alone. They were about recognizing that every difficult chapter had quietly prepared both of you for a future built on understanding, kindness, and genuine appreciation. Here is the truth that stays long after this story ends. Life is not asking you to rush toward tomorrow. It is inviting you to become fully present today. Because the person you are becoming is far more valuable than the version of yourself that simply wished for a different future. Keep choosing growth. Keep protecting your peace. Keep believing that meaningful things take time to unfold. Every day you continue walking with courage, you write another page in a story that is becoming stronger,